we went to this lake that was one of the most stunningly beautiful places we'd ever seen. And my wife and I are just gazing out at this lake that we feel like we could look at for an hour. And my daughter, a lot of times would be like, look at this. And my daughter will go, wow. And it's so satisfying, right? So my wife is like, look at this lake. And my daughter goes, wow. And my wife was looking at my daughter while she said it. And she's like, she didn't even look up. She's just fucking placating us.
Oh, man.
She's not even looking.
Okay, so
yeah.
Record the intro now.
So what is Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids. But then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey. Hey. Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max, coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take. On this episode of Milkless, we're going to talk about traveling with your kids. Not the easiest thing to do in the world, but boy, do we both feel like it's worth it. Max has done a ton of this, so I'm going to ask him some of his best tips, tricks, what makes the plane flight easier, what makes the long car ride easier. And we're also going to talk about the kind of this distinction between a vacation that's about relaxation and an adventure that maybe is not easy, but is kind of fills a different cup. This is a fun one. I'm doing it from Ireland, so we're kind of, doing it while we're doing it. I hope you enjoy. Here we go.
All right, Matt, today we're talking about traveling with your kids. Why would you ever do that? Or why should you? Or why should you do that? You're actually in Ireland right now. We're doing this live via satellite.
We're method podcasting. It's a new thing.
Yeah, so hit me. What, how do you want to dive in?
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, we're here for a month. This is something we've talked about doing our whole life, but it is definitely a first for us as a family of four. Kind of big international travel for a long period of time. Some of it's going great. Some of it's pretty hard. So let's start with how every trip starts. Not the most fun part, which is getting there.
Yeah.
Flying with kids is no picnic, man. Are there things that you've figured out that have made traveling easier for you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so we don't do iPads at home. We do iPads if they're in a long drive over 45 minutes or any plane. And plane rides are actually the easiest part for us now. There is an age pre-iPad when they can't watch a movie yet. Mm-hmm. Once they can watch a movie and they don't ever get to use an iPad, the minute they are at iPad age, you are golden.
Yeah.
Also, you go younger. Under a year, it's kind of easy too, because if they can't really walk yet, they'll just kind of sit and eat snacks. And maybe there's napping a lot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's that age between 9 months and 2 before they can watch a movie. Then it can be really tough.
Our 10-month-old on the flight was right. She's just getting into wanting to touching,
yeah.
And everything goes in the mouth. And there's the guy in the seat in front of her, and she's just reaching for just wanting to slam the tray table up and down.
Yeah.
She did pretty well. She actually got the most sleep of any of us on the flight.
Well, let me jump into jet lag and sleeping on planes, just because we've done it so many times. When we lived in Amsterdam, we went back and forth so many times. Long story short, give yourself grace, give yourself a pass.
Yeah.
We used to try to really get them to sleep, whatever. The real thing is start thinking about the next time zone you're going to be in. But at the end of the day, sleep when you can sleep. The thing that I do that works so you get over jet lag in one day is you just don't nap when you get there. It's so hard. Mm-hmm. I'd just be like, watch this. I'm just going to be like a monkey, a court jester all day, deal with cranky kids. But if you don't nap when you get there, then you can fall asleep at normal time. If you nap, then you're going to be all wide awake. It's very hard to fall asleep.
I've heard that for every hour of time zone difference, it kind of takes a day for your circadian rhythms to catch up.
That's sort of true.
Does that feel about right?
Yeah. That's why I like melatonin and or Benadryl, just to lock it in for the first night or two. I wouldn't do too much Benadryl with the kid. Obviously, consult your physician. We're not doctors.
But we do have a podcast, so...
Yeah, it's similar to a medical degree. But it's When you're traveling, it's about survival mode. This is not the time to really work on setting an example and showing the other passengers on the plane that like, look how good of a parent I am. Just give them the iPad. Just get through the flight.
Right.
You got to try to find ways to make your life easier.
You know, this is just like little dumb suckers. My wife just got like 1 million of those and was like, our 5-year-old can have as many of these as she wants on the flight because they help with your ears not getting fucked up. And if I think about if I have an overseas flight, I drink a couple of glasses of wine, I watch a movie or two, and then I fucking sack out. It's like, that is not the time to be really, hardcore about like your standards for what you're going to do.
So I'm going to jump into one quick survey that is the reason why travel is important, because I think we know a lot of people, maybe from like your hometown. I know a handful of people who never really left the state. And not for financial means. If your parents didn't travel, then you don't travel. It can be very intimidating and scary.
My college roommate was from the New York City area. So we went to Boston together once. He'd never been to Boston.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I've never been this far. I live in New York. Why would I go anywhere? I'm like, dude, it was like 3 hours from the house he grew up in. He's like, nah.
Right.
It's nah.
And so getting into the reasoning, this survey found that kids have a greater willingness to learn and explore. They're more independent and confident, more intellectually curious, more tolerant and respectful, sensitive. I mean, all as a result of traveling.
Wow.
And it helps them throughout lives. And so here's the thing, like I kind of think when you travel with young kids, like under 1, like babies, that's really to like keep sanity between you and your partner. You guys go out there. But it also has an unbudgeted upside of like teaching the kid about adaptability.
Yeah, dude.
What if a kid has never slept in a bed that is not in their house? Look, we have routine. I love routine. But yeah, every once in a while, we're going to like go camping and sleep on the ground.
Yeah. There was one night where my wife was having to work here and then she was going to wrap up and then cook dinner. And so I was going to take the girls to this playground, but then it started raining. This is classic, the kind of move I pulled. It's kind of dumb, but also I love it.
Yeah.
It was raining, so it's like, well, you can't go to the playground. And my older daughter's like, what if we just go for a drive? And I'm like, great. So I look up, like, what's close to here? It turns out we're like 14 minutes from the tallest mountain in Ireland called Carrauntoohil. And so I was like, let's drive to Carrauntoohil. So we drive there and we park. By the time we parked, it stopped raining. So it's like, well, we should start the hike up. We're not going to climb the highest mountain, but we can start the hike up the mountain. And so we start hiking, and then I'm like, I bet we can get to the top of that hill. And then my daughter's like, fuck yeah. And I'm just carrying the baby. And then we have to like, at one point, like climb over a fence. So I just like pass the baby over a barbed wire fence to my 5-year-old and then climb over. And then we're going up. And then it starts pouring. Like while we're kind of like further from the car than we should be, and dinner's in like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the wind starts blowing and it's cold. And there's sheep everywhere. And like one of the sheep's kind of like fucking looking at us wrong. And my daughter's like, what the fuck with this sheep? But like, so she has to like get big and like some of the sheep back off. And she's like, holy shit, I can back sheep off. And then the baby's just looking at me and she's kind of got this wide-eyed look like, Dad, you've lost your fucking mind here. And I'm like, I know. But then like, we're just all kind of jazzed. And on the hike back down, my like baby is like, I can tell she's cold. And I'm kind of feeling like an asshole, but I'm like, are you all right? And she just looks at me and she's just like, wow. And she's just waggling her head and grinning ear to ear. And I'm like, she's not going to remember that, but she was a bad motherfucker in that moment. And there's no way that's not like a part of her now.
Right. But then also if you do another kind of wild adventure when she's 18 months, it's not like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's in there.
Yeah. Just because your kids don't remember something does not mean that it is not forming who they are in deep and profound ways. In fact, those years that you don't remember are some of the very most formative years of your life. So you may not remember, but your comfort zone was permanently expanded.
Yeah.
I think that often we use like, they won't remember as like as a dismissal of the entire experience. Whereas it couldn't be anything further than true. That is like when your brain is the most malleable and changing the most. And so adventures are a big deal at that age. And then you can show them the pictures later.
100%. Then they get 5 and older. Now we're talking about things that they know about. They know about the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
They know about the Grand Canyon. They know about Italian food and that spaghetti comes from there.
Yeah.
Like these are memories that they will never forget. Even at 5 years old, like scaring down like a sheep. putting her hands up, like she will always remember that story. And it's like, I know a lot of people want to wait, but really there's so many cool ways to make it easy. When the kids are 2 to 4, that's like the hard zone, right? Or 1 to 4, 1 to 5. Kids clubs. Okay. Kids clubs. You go to a place that has like a really good kids club. At first I thought it was sad. It's like, we're going on vacation and the kids have to go to daycare. Okay. We went to this kids club in Portugal. We dropped them off for 2 hours the first day. And then my wife and I went out, for a little lunch or whatever. We picked them up a couple hours later. They're like, why are you here? There's a mini disco tonight with pizza. Leave us alone. And I'm like, oh, okay. They say the mini disco goes till 9:30 p.m. Can we stay up that late? I'm like, if you want. They're like, please leave. It was a at the time 2, 4, and 6-year-old, and they're just like having the best time. They're like, they're coloring. They have like friends from Germany. Yeah. Like they got all these friends because when you're young, I don't know. They just like a lot of parallel play, so they don't really even need to. Yeah. So they're just like playing,
occupying the same space. Yeah, it's been interesting here. Because obviously they speak English in Ireland, but there's the town we're in is hosting a pretty significant population of Ukrainian refugees, which is super cool. And so we go to the playground, and there's usually almost as many Ukrainian kids as there are Irish kids. And our daughter will just play with them because they don't really fucking need to talk. It's just like point over there and then one of them starts running and then they're both running.
Yeah.
The language barrier is a bigger deal for adults than it is for kids in some ways.
The amount of learning that happens.
Yeah.
What language do they speak? And why do they have an accent like that? And how does it work like this?
Yeah.
Curiosity in the world. I mean, how many adults do you know that kind of don't understand that the United States isn't in the center of the universe? Mm-hmm. By traveling the world, it just becomes normal that like America is just one of many.
Do you know that joke about the 2 fish swimming in the water?
No.
So there's 2 fish swimming in the water and a duck swims over the top of them. Duck says, hey, the water's nice today. Duck swims off. The fish look at each other and they say, what the fuck is water?
Yeah.
So if you've only ever been in the U.S., there are things about culture and life there that you just assume are true everywhere. And the differences, like at pretty fundamental levels in the way people operate, are profound. I remember going to France and being like, oh man, men and women interact really differently here than they do in the States. Or going to Canada and be like, so y'all just aren't scared of each other? Weird.
Yeah. Or like the directness of Dutch people. Where they'll just be like, yeah, why do you talk that way? Why do you say, how are you doing? And then walk away?
That's right.
Why wouldn't you just say good morning if you don't care to hear my response? Even just like within the country. I mean, yeah. America is so different going from Texas to New York to Utah to California.
That's a great point. Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't even need to be overseas.
Even going from a city to a small town, you're in a totally different universe.
Yeah. Just exposure to more things.
There's so many different ways to be and to live. Like, what a valuable thing to see. And for us adults to see that. It's been good, I think, for me, too, to get out of my, day-to-day milieu. You mentioned kids clubs. I have another friend who is a big believer in kids clubs, and she made this distinction, which I really like. She's like, every year we try to take one vacation where there's a kids club, an all-inclusive resort, or it's something with very low logistics. It's something that will actually kind of be relaxing.
Yeah.
And then we take one trip. This is a trip for us. This is not, we're the 4 of us. We're in this little house outside of this small town, and we got no help, and there's no kids club. People have asked us like, "Oh, are you really relaxing in Ireland?" It's like, no, we got a 10-month-old and a 5-year-old, and it's just us out here. But man, it's a fucking adventure. And this surprised me that what I needed more than relaxation was an adventure.
Yeah.
Man, I had this experience. We were like a few days in, and I was having these worries of like, did we do this when the kids were too young? Am I getting enough out of this? There's all these things that like I can't really do. Like if it were just me and my wife, there's distilleries we'd go to. There's like mountains I could climb. There's, But one night I got everybody to bed. I was kind of tired, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get up and go for a walk and just see what's around here. And I walked for a little while, and then I saw this thing to my left that looked kind of shadowy and dark, and it wasn't even clear that it wasn't private property, but I was like, I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was in fucking Middle Earth. it opened up onto this unbelievable river with swans, and there was a grandfather and a father and a son fishing together at 10 p.m. for salmon in the river. And then I wound up in this ancient graveyard where the stones were so old you couldn't even see the names.
Yeah.
And I realized it had been so long since I had just started down a path that I didn't know it was going to end.
Yeah.
And since then, I have been seeking that and going out after everybody's asleep because it stays light until like midnight here. Or just taking my kids on, like, well, let's drive to this mountain and see how far up we can climb before it feels really stupid.
Yeah.
I am not going to come home from this trip rested. I am not going to come home from this trip having had a vacation. But something is getting filled that has really needed to get filled. And that I don't even think I knew how bad.
That is so awesome. And I think a lot of people think about vacations as always relaxation. Did you come back with R&R? But I've had similar trips where like, oh, you well rested? It's like, no, I think I need a vacation now.
I'm fucking exhausted.
After this.
Yeah.
But it's still worth it. But there's also a middle ground. This is also one of our little tricks. You can still have an adventure like you're having, but then if you can take the edge off with a local babysitting service just to give you like one night out.
Yeah, dude, tell me about that.
If you just Google like Ireland, whatever, there's probably like a care.com. Like in Amsterdam, there's Charlie Cares. And these things are like legit. You can see reviews. Like a lot of times, like Charlie Cares in Amsterdam, these people are like have to go through interviews and background checks. And you can see like, oh, this person has babysat for 700 people in the last.
This person is a more experienced parent than I am.
Yeah, exactly. They exist, and there's all kinds of services like that.
Yeah, that's the thing that we have not done enough of. So I worry about it. It's a thing that we would have to get my kids comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because with our almost 6-year-old, she's had the same nanny since she was 6 months old. And then we were starting to do things with like kind of rotating in a couple of nannies just locally in Austin through services. And then COVID hit and it just got super complicated. And then we hadn't really done it since. So she's just not that used to being watched by somebody that she doesn't like love,
right?
Basically.
Well, we have the trick for that because when we had this new babysitter from Charlie Cares in Amsterdam, like literally our 3-year-old was so opinionated and like whatever. He was like, when we left, he's like, I'm going up to bed at 5 o'clock. And she's like, do you want me to scratch your back or read you a book? He's like, nope. And he just laid in bed from 5 o'clock till he fell asleep at like 7 because he didn't want to deal with her. And then because of that, our 1-year-old was crying. And that happened like 3 or 4 times. But we developed this like tried and true method that now they're so into babysitters, it's fine. But the way we got there was we had her over. It was actually her idea to play. So she was just there playing with the kids while we were there for like an hour or two. And then she's like, can I take them out for ice cream? And then she asked the kids, you guys want to go out for ice cream? So she just took them for ice cream, came back. That was it.
Yeah.
And we got some work done because she was like playing with the kids for an hour and a half. Then she took them to ice cream, all in 2 hours. Then the next night she came over and we were going to like read and react whether we were going to leave. And it seemed fine. And we're just like, yeah, guys, we're just going to run out for a quick bite. We'll be back. The funny thing is 3 months later, she had been babysitting probably 10 times. And it was like a daytime babysitting thing. And so we give her the cash and he's now 3.5, 4 at this point. And he's like, what did you just give her? Oh, no. But money. He's like, why? Because she's a babysitter. And he had put her in the category of an aunt.
Oh, she was just a bud. Oh,
she was just
really
like a grandparent or an aunt.
Oh,
and it was
man.
like, you pay her money to be with us? I'm like, yeah, this is a babysitter. And it's like,
oh, it's really funny.
But because I'm sure like if I came over, right, and I was like having dinner with you guys and hung out.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And I was playing for like 4 or 5 hours and you guys, oh, we're just going to run out. Max is going to keep playing with you for a couple hours. It'd be like totally fine.
Yeah.
So that's a little
you
trick.
You ease them into it. I like that.
Could work.
Yeah. But even if we aren't able to line that up because we're in this small town, it's still...
Yeah.
I feel great about how it's going.
That's awesome.
That said, there have been some hard things. One question I want to ask you, do your kids get homesick when you travel?
Not really, but there will be, it'll usually get mentioned once or twice. Like, I want to go home. I miss my own bed. What we just try to do is to, like, acknowledge the feelings. Maybe the gut reaction is like, oh no, there's nothing to be homesick about. Don't be homesick. Don't be homesick. I'll just be like, yeah, me too. Like, I love home. I love my bed, but I also like it here. Remember this fun thing you did? Remember that? And we'll be home before you know it. Like, blah, blah, blah.
My daughter brought that up, and I kind of said the same thing, which is like, it's okay to be homesick because that does mean you love home, and it's good to love home. But I kind of started trying to push on, like, what do you miss? I just started asking, like, what kind of stuff do you miss?
Oh, yeah.
And as she started to articulate it, it was this kind of series of things, none of which by themselves seemed that significant. But I think what she started to articulate was like, I miss the place where I know how things work. And I think we have, as much as there's a lot of wonderful stuff happening here and we are having these amazing adventures, I'm also having more conflict with my 5-year-olds, much more conflict with my 5-year-old than I do on average.
Yeah.
Part of that is that I'm not at work for a lot of the day. We're all 4 of us are together all the time with no nanny or, anybody else. So some of that's natural. But I think a big part of it is like, there have been moments, sometimes when you're just like, my kid's being kind of a dick.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of those.
Yeah.
And I think what it's a reaction to is just her feeling like she's out of her element.
Yeah.
And that she doesn't, and that she has a little less freedom because of it. She's a little worried about just roaming around the place by herself. She'll roam around our place in Austin all the time with snakes and scorpions and tarantulas and cactuses, and it's actually more space. And here, there's not a single fucking snake on the island, and all it is like soft, luscious grass and like hedgerows, and there's usually 3 to 4 bunnies in our yard. But she's like worried about going out there, and it's just... Yeah. It seems like it's just not as familiar, so she doesn't feel like she has as much freedom, and so she's more opinionated about getting her way and what she wants because she just feels a little bit like less empowered or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's unsettling, and that's why I think this is one of those examples of why it's a good thing to do this. Over the next few weeks while you're there, she'll probably get a little bit closer, like the wolf in Dances with Wolves. Every day comes a little closer. Comes a little closer.
Socks? What's the
white socks.
White socks. Yeah.
2 socks. White socks.
2 socks. Yeah. Howley 2 socks.
Yeah.
God, it's so stupid.
And then also, I think something that we realize on vacations is this is why kids clubs are good, or a babysitter is good. It's good to have space away from each other.
Yeah, you gotta.
And whether that's in a book, doing a puzzle by yourself, watching TV for a couple hours, it's good to kind of like go away from each other and come back to each other. Miss each other after a couple hours. You come back together because 24/7 with anybody.
Too much. Anybody.
Way too much.
Too much.
It's
yeah. Typically on an average work week, I'm at work many days of the week. So like the times that I'm home, I am like so all about them.
Yeah.
But now being with my daughter 24/7, this is the first time we're ever in the same room, and she's like, "Play with me," and I'm like, "I've played with you for 4 hours already today, baby. Like, I just can't. I can't."
Yeah.
And I've had to tell her, like, I've even had to explain, like, some of your games aren't fun for me.
Yeah.
I do them only because I love being with you.
Yeah. I think it also kind of, just a quick spitball, if I was in your shoes, like it's something like especially because you have a really unique opportunity here with like the amount of time you're just in the
stretch.
Irish countryside. And I think you're gonna pepper it with activities, and those are gonna be there. But it's that dead time where you have maybe a whole day or a whole half a day, and you can't be being the jester dancing for your kids all day.
Yeah.
So it's being creative to find something in the yard, whether that's collecting bugs, digging a hole, finding sticks, looking for Killarney gold.
Yeah.
If that's even a thing that just popped into the head.
We are really close to Killarney, actually.
Something, whatever it is, because to give her some things to kind of work on. Is there something that she can get obsessed about and go deep into?
I was thinking back, my family is one of those families that we went to the same house That was our vacation pretty much every year, because we went to this house that was on a lake that belonged to my mom's parents.
I think I've been there.
Oh yeah, that's where I had my bachelor party.
Yeah.
So we always went on the same vacation. And looking back, I remember like we loved that place. But I also remember big conflicts in my family that would happen there, but that felt like they would resolve something. I do think that one of the things that happens on a vacation is all the normal noise of life is gone. And the things that can distract you from whatever like rough edges there are in the family, or whatever like things you haven't quite addressed, or whatever family dynamics are kind of like, you can smooth them over as long as you've got, your shows and the work and the, like all that's like, no, this is time where it's really about us and each other. And so we've had some conflicts that have been like, we had a day where we went to see, my daughter's favorite animal is cheetahs. And so we went to this really beautiful town with like all these fucking castles in it. And like what we did with our day was we went to like one of the most successful cheetah breeding centers in the world because it was near there. And then on the way home, my daughter started bitching about how long the drive was. And my wife and I were both just like fucking steam out the ears, because she was acting like, man, like nothing ever goes how I want it to, which we've gotten a lot of on days where we've like organized a lot of shit with her in mind,
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd ever really explained to her like how much we do for her that isn't exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
And like how much of our days we build around trying to give her experiences that we know she'll love. So there are some conflicts that are happening that are unpleasant while they're happening, but I do think there's like sometimes the only way out is through.
Yeah.
And we are having those rubber meets the road friction, but maybe productive kind of interactions because we're in this place that's not the normal buzz of life,
And you have the time to devote to unpacking some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like on that long drive, you can talk about all that sort of stuff and teach your daughter that you're your own person, and that helps. Even if it doesn't seem like it works, it gets in there.
Yeah.
And over time, you will figure it out, and she'll figure it out. And I don't know, there's no data on this, but I just feel like the more you put your family into that buzzsaw of travel and do the hard things, like you get better at it.
Yeah.
Like the more you do it, it just becomes normal. And then she'll get just like how she feels comfortable in the backyard, she'll be comfortable at a new Airbnb, wherever it is. And then she'll figure out her way to do that, and you guys will figure out your way to interact with each other. But it's similar to like teaching a kid to bike. It's a little bit of pain, but it's so worth it.
It's funny. So often we're talking about kids and then we realize in one way or another it applies to ourselves and to adults as well.
Yeah.
But I think that like, growing up in a family that went to the same house that was, 2.5 hours away from the house we lived in, and that was our vacation. I never once traveled internationally with my family.
We went to Montreal together when we were 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Is that your first time out of the country?
No, I'd been to Mexico before, but like,
okay.
Like Mexico, from Texas, Mexico, that's like, you're barely leaving the state. My wife and I have also struggled a bit with being outside of our comfort zone and not knowing the way things work. But maybe what happens is your comfort zone expands to include not knowing the way things work and having the confidence that you'll figure that shit out. And that's maybe what your kids are getting to. Like, I don't always have to be in a place where I know the lay of the land because I trust myself.
Yeah, 100%. And also, even if you're out of your comfort zone, that's a great bonding experience with your child or your children to show them like you're figuring this out together. And it's all worth it. It's all worth it.
You get so much in return. And this, by the way, we're talking about a lot of exotic locations, but one of the best trips I ever took my daughter on was we drove an hour to San Antonio and stayed at this little hotel on the Riverwalk and went to the San Antonio Zoo, just the two of us. And the hotel happened to have a pool on the roof. And this blew my daughter's fucking mind.
Yeah, like we went camping last weekend at a state campground, drove the truck, set up our tent. The kids just like literally like dug holes, played in the river, made a dam in the river, tried to fish for 6 hours, caught not a single nibble. And it was literally like the best 2 days of their lives.
I realized this hilarious thing. We went to like we went to this lake that was one of the most stunningly beautiful places we'd ever seen. And we pulled over on the side of the road just to look at it. And my wife and I are just gazing out at this lake that we feel like we could look at for an hour. And my daughter, a lot of times, would be like, look at this. And my daughter will go, wow. And it's so satisfying, right? So my wife is like, look at this lake. And my daughter goes, wow. And my wife was looking at my daughter while she said it. And she's like, she didn't even look up. She's just fucking placating us.
Oh, man.
She's not even looking. And we realized that, like, just looking at pretty shit doesn't do that much for kids. And I started thinking about, like, kids' museums. The best kids' museums are all interactive.
Yeah.
They can touch shit. They can feel shit. They can smell shit. So the activities for us that have been wins are where we have to restrict her the least, where she can touch the most stuff and where she can interact with it. Because a beautiful vista entertains them for that long. The opportunities to do this do not have to be expensive. They do not have to be exotic. It's just new. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just putting them in uncomfortable situations. I mean, those are the types of kids that when you grow up can kind of roll with anything.
Yeah.
That sort of adaptability opens up doorways for you.
The ripple effect of that, just to being comfortable, trusting yourself to figure something out, or to talk to a person that is very different than you. Like, it goes so much beyond just their comfort level in traveling to just their comfort level in life. Are there any other tips that I should have asked you about that you feel like are really good?
Don't be so obsessed with completing that hike or having an amazing dinner. Because what you want to do is look back on the experience and the vacation and be like, that was fun. Mm-hmm. As opposed to like sticking to that hard line and then you just shoot yourself in the foot and it ends up being not fun.
We're doing something that, while amazing, is also hard. So let's cut ourselves some slack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, one shout out that I do want to give to Ireland. We've spent a lot of time at the playground at the center of town. From what I've seen, pretty strong dad culture in Ireland.
Have you been into any Irish pubs?
Yeah, we've been to the pub a couple of times. Yeah.
Have you had any like Irish breakfast? Because I love an English breakfast with the beans, fried egg, seared tomato, the beans, sausage. But then the only difference between an Irish breakfast and an English breakfast is they have it's called like pudding. It's just discs of sausage that have been cut. Like that breakfast would probably give you a heart attack, but I love it so much.